Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure once again to welcome you. As I've said in the past, and I'll say it again, this particular series, perhaps more than any other, speaks to the heart and the soul of our community, the amazing organizations, their dedicated staff, their volunteers who perform acts of kindness, chesed, in a way that gives dignity to so many members of the Jewish community, something that is certainly deserving to be highlighted. Olam b'chesed yibona, as we have mentioned on so many occasions, the world requires chesed. Chesed is not just another mitzvah, if one can even say such a thing. Chesed speaks to the very essence of a human being. It speaks to the very essence of a Jew. We learn this not only from our forefathers, and in particular Avraham Avinu, but we learn this from God himself, as is illustrated in many instances in the Torah. Interestingly enough, the Maharal parallels and contrasts the pillar of chesed upon which the world rests to the act of murder, the cardinal sin of murder. And he asks, or subtly asks, the question as to why it is perhaps that the sin of murder is a cardinal sin. And he explains that there are certain actions that if one does it, it's not only an act that is ill in and of itself, which doesn't deserve any other elaboration other than that, but the act itself goes against the very DNA that makes up the person. Chesed is not just something that one should do. Chesed speaks to the very essence of you and I and each of us. When a person does chesed, they do the antithesis of murder. They do creation. They do building. They become partners in a new reality, in a reality that is hopefully better as a result of their investment in the situation. It's interesting to note, there is a pasuk in the Torah that we're going to mention throughout Yomim Noroyim, v'zacharti es brisi Yaakov, v'afet brisi Yitzchok, v'afet brisi Avraham eskor, v'oretz eskor. Then that God says in the context of a broader discussion, he says that he will remember the covenant that was made with Jacob, the covenant that was made with Isaac, and the covenant that was made with Abraham. And the obvious question that is asked by so many of Chazal is, why does this verse speak about the various covenants that were made between God and the forefathers in the reverse order of chronological events? It would make more sense to make reference to the covenant of Abraham first, the covenant of Isaac second, the covenant of Jacob third. And yet the pasuk makes reference to first the covenant with Jacob, second the covenant with Isaac, and third, the covenant with Abraham. And there are many answers to this question. One of the most famous answers that is given by many of the commentaries is that what the Torah is teaching us is that God says the merit of Yaakov himself will be enough. And if his merit is not enough, then the merit of Yitzchak will be there to help us. And if the merit of Yitzchak is not enough, then we can always rely on the merit of Avraham Avinu. What is the merit of Avraham Avinu, by the way? Chesed. Now listen to this. Rav Meir Shapiro, Zichrono Tzadik Livrocha, said the following idea. He says there was once upon a time where the Jewish people the world over were strong in all of the attributes that the forefathers embodied. We know Yaakov embodied Torah. We know that Yitzchak embodied service, in particular prayer. We know that Abraham embodied chesed. There was once a time when every single Jew the world over embodied all three of these ideas. And as a result of our exile, slowly but surely, for justified reasons and also not such justified reasons, perhaps some of these attributes became less and less important amongst many of the Jewish people. And so even though there was once a time when the entire Jewish people perhaps were learning Torah, were davening and doing chesed, slowly but surely, less people started learning Torah. And people were left with davening primarily, as well as chesed. And then slowly but surely, says Rav Meir Shapiro, eventually davening itself became quite a challenging reality. But he said the following. He says, regardless of how challenged the Jew may be regarding Torah, regarding davening, the attribute of chesed will always remain intact. And this is one of the lessons that this verse is speaking to. The reality is that the world over, regardless of whether a Jew is close or whether a Jew is further, chesed speaks to each and every single one of us because, again, it speaks to the very essence of our being. all that we really need perhaps is a little bit of a window to the opportunity that is chesed. And through that window to the opportunity that is chesed, we can inspire one another to do more in relation to this most powerful activity, which again, to be repetitive, speaks to the very essence of who we are. Our hope through this series is to highlight recognition and gratitude for the tremendous dedication and commitment that is very much due to all those that do these acts of chesed. But over and above that, through recognizing what is done, we hope that, please God, we can inspire each and every single one of us to do a little bit more, that each and every single one of us can make a difference, that each and every single one of us need each other, that if we put in the effort, we can really make the world a better place. The Base and Soul present a special 5-part series of one-on-one talks with people leading the organizations that support, serve, and save the Jewish community. Tonight, the Shoshana Foundation, represented by its chairman, David Aronovitz, as well as Stacey Lewis, tremendous organizations, tremendous personalities, a tremendous honor for us to be able to host them. With that, I'd like to hand over to Rob.
Thank you, Rabbi, and a warm welcome to our panelists, David and Stacey, and welcome to each and every viewer tonight on the show. Welcome, David and Stacey, and to our viewers, I have a disclosure that I have to make, and that is that Shoshana Foundation, which has been going on for the past 13 years, I am part of Shoshana Foundation, so our viewers might find the discussion between Stacey, myself, and David, who the three of us have worked very, very closely together over, as I say, many, 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 many years. David is one of the founders and the chairman of Shoshana Foundation, so the conversation will be quite fluid, and it will be, quite insightful. David, let's start with you, Shoshana Foundation. Shoshana Foundation is established to help primarily single Jewish mothers, be they widowers, divorcees, or other mothers, and orphans. What was the rationale for starting Shoshana Foundation 13 years ago?
Rob, primarily yourself was you set an example in terms of your own approach to the needs of these single mothers in all different circumstances. And you inspired the people who are around you, myself and the team that we've got together over the years. Out there are many people, specifically the category that we're working with, these single mothers, these divorcees, who've gone through a very, very difficult time in very difficult economic circumstances specifically, and that's our specific role that we play, where they can't turn easily to an organization to get funds at short notice. If I can give a historical reality that there was in the time of the Jewish Helping Hand, there was an individual called Simon Jackson, a man who was a real tzaddik. But in those times, the South African Jewish community was a much more compressed and very connected community. And Simon was able to handle the requests on a daily basis to turn around to people and give them funds at very short notice and look after their needs, which were critical to them. And he was able to analyze them and work with them. As these organizations grew bigger and bigger, it became much more difficult to be able to work with people like this and to be able to assess their needs on a basis of need and urgent need. And you yourself, as you said, recognized this, and we got together and we fulfilled this new role that had disappeared from the community, where a woman could approach us, we could assess this working with various people who would help us, and we would, in some cases, 8:30 in the morning, we would get a call, and by 11, the money was in the bank. We're an organization that grants money. We don't loan money, we give it out. We give it out with sensitivity, we give it out with awareness of the dignity, the confidentiality, and we do it very, very quickly. And that's been the key focus of our organization over these last 13 years, and it has been highly successful on the basis of the reverse coming back to us from our recipients and certainly from the community being aware of how effective we can be maintaining the dignity and the confidentiality of our recipients.
David, yeah, thank you for that. I want to come back to that point. I want to speak to Stacey now, but I do want to come back to the point. And I specifically want to come back to the point which you told me many, many years ago about what I think the late Rabbi Aloy Zecher Tzadik Livrocha told you, and I think there were others around you, about never forgetting who you are and how to do tzedakah. And I'd like to, when I've just asked Stacey this question, come back to that, because I think it's a very, very interesting point that our viewers will find quite enlightening, and that's really how Shoshana Foundation, the ethos of Shoshana Foundation, is run. But Stacey, the one
with you, Rob?
Yeah, we'll do it after Stacey. I want to come back to you on that one, David. Stacey, the one point that we at Shoshana Foundation haven't been successful at, and there's been a tremendous demand for this, and that is that a lot of women are not financially secure and independent. Typically, the man in the house has got more of the money, he's worked, the woman's raised the kids, not in every circumstance, but in a majority of circumstance. They then get divorced for whatever reason, and the woman doesn't have the financial means to fight the case. There's been too many of these cases for our liking. We've tried a pro bono with lawyers. It's been of limited success. In today's South Africa, the costs of fighting a divorce are either increasing. If the husband has significant resources, you can go to the top divorce lawyers, and it's just the woman then is just on a hiding to nothing. You have realized that. You have partnered with us for many, many years in trying to get, for want of a better expression, the best deal for the woman. Can you just explain to us how you started and what role you play in the value chain which I've just described?
Thanks for having me. It's a great honor to be on this Zoom. Just to say, so in 2008, I went through a divorce myself. I had 3 little children, and I had a very difficult time getting through it. I also found the difficulty was I didn't really know anyone else who had gotten divorced. And there was a scarcity of resources. So when I healed from my divorce, I first went about trying to pull resources together, and I started helping women informally, just one-on-one, counseling them kind of through their divorces, networking, facilitating networking with other people involved in the divorce realm. And in 2016, I actually started a website called the Divorce Source, which is a free website, which is just resources for people going through a divorce. And then I authored a book also in 2016 called Divorce 101, Survive and Thrive. And all this time just began broadening the work that I did. I also qualified as a divorce mediator. Through my website, I was very lucky. I had a tool that I could barter with. So in those days, I was fortunate. I managed to barter with some attorneys and get women free legal assistance, finding it more difficult these days. I also work very closely with the Chev, and I assisted in the conception of their volunteer court support program, which is they have trained volunteers that go with women to the maintenance court, as well as to the domestic violence court. I still network with many family law attorneys, and occasionally I'm successful in getting pro bono assistance. The issue these days is a litigated divorce is just absolutely unaffordable. And even for an attorney who's assisting pro bono, it's virtually unaffordable. So I find in terms of the actual divorce assistance I can give, I can connect people, with other attorneys who can possibly advise them of their rights. I'm also a mediator, so I do encourage mediation first, because the truth is it's not only the cheapest solution, but your future is not in the hands of a judge who don't know where they come from. The divorcing couple actually have a say in their future and the future of their children. So I assist a lot in the actual mediation, and then also post-divorce, or while they're going through a divorce. I do assist women in dealing with their finances. So either finding ways to reduce their expenditure, to earn more income, connecting them with other charity organizations like Shoshana, for example, if they haven't come from you already, helping them budget, wherever I can assist.
Yes, I think it's remiss of me not to mention the 2 books that you've written and the immense work that you do. So, Stacey, thank you very, very much for that. We'll come back to you on that one. David, at Shoshana Foundation, people who have dealt with it at Shoshana Foundation for financial grants know that there's no forms that have to be filled out. There's never been an interview that we've ever conducted in 13 years. It's simply by email and by reference that we give the money. And Stacey, as you've said, you've referred many women to us. That is the way we operate. David, I think the reason that we do that goes back to a discussion we had many years ago, which was founded really by the late Rabbi Aloy. Maybe you can just embellish on that quickly.
Well, that's virtually something that is always, we bear in mind at every meeting we have when we do get together. Just very quickly, we have 4 trustees that really run the organization. We're all involved in our own businesses, and we give of our time by linking and working closely with various people, very closely, as you said, and we're with Stacey. And we work with some of the social workers from the Jewish Helping Hand, and we do certainly take advice, but it's done on a very quick basis. But behind it is almost a motto of Rabbi Aloy. I heard it at the time that I was involved with the Chevra Kadisha, and we've heard it too, mentioned many times by him constantly, that when you work within this area of chesed, one should always do it with a Jewish heart, not with a university degree. University degree might give you certain key attributes in your technical ability to handle your area of speciality, but effectively, the way we approach things and the way we should all approach things, and I think this is something that stands out in many of the chesed organizations, is we have to do it with a Jewish heart. And that's been the underlying thrust of our organization from the start, and is still there, and please God, we should continue that way in how we view each application and make the decisions that we then put out in practice. Yeah.
David, it's also fair to say that that since COVID has unfortunately hit our community, I'm not saying anything that anyone or any of the panelists or certainly any of the viewers is going to be surprised at, that it's been an absolutely devastating event that has caused devastation both financially, physically, and mentally on many people in our community. We took the decision about a month ago. It was actually the first time in 13 years that we've ever veered, wrong word, but call it that, outside our specific focus of helping single mothers and orphans, and that was to go into the general community. We've put a certain amount of money aside, and it's a grant up to 10,000 Rand per family. We have seen an enormous amount of applications. I suppose, David, that just shows the level of the effect of COVID in the community.
Of need. Rob, interesting enough, as you said, in the recent months moving into this area due to the present conditions of what's happening worldwide. But we've also evolved. 13 years ago, we were looking at an organization that was specifically working in giving grants specifically in the area of finance to these recipients that were very specific to their needs. And slowly we moved forward and started giving more grants in educational areas, working closely with diverse organizations in the community. And then we, as you said, we hit COVID. And a very interesting thing for the community to see is that it came Pesach this year, as an example. And whilst many of these single mothers in a normal year would have the opportunity of spending Pesach with their families or with friends who would invite them out, suddenly they were tied to their homes. They didn't have the necessary utensil for Pesach. And we came forward and we were able to offer to substantial numbers of these women a significant amount of money. If I'm not mistaken, we gave just over 200,000 rands worth of utensils for Pesach. And we've moved into areas
utensils and food vouchers.
And
correct.
food vouchers, which has become a very strong standard for these women. We give them their dignity. We create a strong connection to various retail environments that we work very closely with, where these women can walk and shop like anybody else without having to stand there getting a voucher as such. They can stand there and feel that they have dignity in purchasing, whether it be meat, whether it be groceries, just like anybody else. And it does give them a self-esteem. And we've done this in other areas. We've given them an opportunity of participating in many community events, which normally they wouldn't have the opportunity to be involved in. These are areas of activity in social forums where they just don't have necessary financial means to be involved. Pre-COVID, when there were opportunities of various concerts that took place, we were able to find sponsors to be able to send people with full packs with their kids to go and enjoy it like everybody else and be part of the community and the excitement of an event, whether it be Avram Fried, whether it be Shweki, whoever may come. So these recipients constantly had the opportunity of tasting what would normally be totally out of their ability to be involved in. And a key point which we may still come, we may be discussing a bit later, Rob, but I think it's very important for the community to realize is one of the big advantages that we have is that we really have virtually no costs involved. We have
other than bank charges, we actually have no costs.
We have no costs. So what comes in goes out. And we're not looking to build up a big fat bank account, but we are able to turn to individuals as they realize that this money is being used on this broad base and the ever increasing need, as we've seen during the recent times. People are donating more and more, and we're able to give more and more. And
yes,
that's the success of the organization, that there's complete integrity. There's an efficacy there. We have an open, transparent accounting system. We are covered by a Section 18, so people can get tax certificates. And yes, we've seen that the community, like Suzanne said earlier, have responded extremely generously in helping. In the new program that we just started now in recent times, as you mentioned when we were speaking earlier, where we've turned right now to working with families, we set up a program, and we started that program one morning at about 8 in the morning, looking to raise 500,000 rand. By 11:30 on the first morning of the program, the money had come in through the awareness of people seeing our sincerity and intention of getting that money out into the hands of people who need it. And that's been the constant direction that we've focused on right from the beginning, and we've honed in on it. And we've evolved, and we're still evolving as we see this need in the community for that emergency need that can be acted on with immediacy.
Yes, that's an important point. I think it's the speed on which we can able to act. I think also, David, it's worth mentioning that before each and every single Jewish holiday, we do something for our women. Purim, we merge with Rabbi Hendler Shul. Before Pesach and Rosh Hashanah, we give food vouchers to make sure that all of our people have enough to get through the Yontif. For Shavuos, in days gone by before COVID, we'd have a dinner, and our gala event being Chol Hamoed Sukkot, where we team up with the base at Rabbi Zulberg's quite a very generous invitation, and do the function there. So we do certainly try and make the life of a single Jewish mother in this town easier. Thank you, David. Stacey, just getting back to you now. A person needs to get divorced. They don't have the financial means. How do they even know that you're around? How would one even contact you? By your own admission, you don't even have a logo. There was nothing we could put on for you. You're a very under the radar person. But, now with COVID, I can only assume, I don't speak with any conviction whatsoever in the point I'm going to make, but I can only assume that, people living together, might be wanting to get divorced when all of this is over.
So, yes, very under the radar, but a lot of people do know about me in the community, and somehow most people who are needing the help do get referred. Because I work so closely with so many charity organizations, they kind of do get to me, but I don't have a website. As you know, I am on the Shoshana website, so
yes.
If someone finds you, they'll find me. Also, the Chev know about me, Kolenu know about me. So I'm pretty much out there, but you're welcome to give my details with the greatest of pleasure should someone need my help. And I help literally from the point where they've made the decision to get divorced. Just to preface it with that, I'm not pro-divorce. But if you find yourself in the position that you are going through a divorce, I sit and I take the person through the different stages and their different options, and I see, do you have funds? Don't you have funds? What are we going to do? And we literally sit down, have a chat, and make a plan to get through it. And I must say, I'm surprised there weren't more homicides during this lockdown, but I believe that there are a lot of divorces that are going to be happening. A lot of people can't get divorced, also wanting to get divorced because of finances. So I have definitely received more calls during this time than usual, but a lot of people feeling stuck because they're wanting to get divorced but actually cannot afford to get divorced. Because the truth is, it's not even just the legal process that's expensive, it's life afterwards. It's running two homes. So it's not necessarily a feasible option for people,
yes.
even if they are wanting to separate, just because of the expense of running two homes.
Yes. Okay. David, getting back to you, in terms of where we're now, it's just before Rosh Hashanah, any concluding message you'd like to send to our listeners?
Rob, first of all, to the community, no different to Suzanne, we have to thank the community for their open pockets, that we've been able to turn to people on an ongoing basis. And in many cases, we've been very fortunate just because of the way we've worked, where people actually come to us before we get to them. And we want to thank all those people in the community who have given us this opportunity that over the last 13 years, we've given out substantial millions of rands. It's not a small organization today. It has evolved constantly through the generosity of the community, but in their awareness of wanting to help. We have people from overseas who have heard about us and have channeled their funds to help those people who are in a stressful, difficult situation, which Chas v'Shalom many of us should have to go through. And to thank the community for that, and for the community to be aware that we always need more. It's not a situation, as Suzanne said, that it's only specific to the need right now. We have a Rosh Hashanah program operating right now where we're giving out to many, many of our ladies. We're giving out, again, a package for them to, again, be able to go and purchase accordingly their needs, which makes it so much easier for them to actually enjoy the Chag without having that pressure of saying, where and who can I turn to? And this is done prior to them having to come and ask. That is the whole approach of the Shoshana Foundation in the people that we already have in our books or as they come to us. So we want to share with all of our recipients and certainly with the community, really, Shana Tova Metuka, Ksiva Vasima Toiva. We can't thank you enough. And please God, an organization like ours shouldn't really be there ultimately. And of course, Baruch should this give us all the strength, the health to be able to continue in doing this sort of program until such time as Be'ezus Hashem Mashiach Tzidkenu.
Amen. Amen. My final comments before I hand over to Rabbi Zulberg is to David as chairman of Shoshana Foundation and Stacey for all the work that you do, Stacey, with us of Shoshana Foundation and in the general community. A big thank you to both of you for appearing on our show. Again, Hashem should shower you and your families with much bracha and enable you to continue doing the work that you do for as long as we, as you say, David, please God, we won't be around for long, but for long as we have to be around. And likewise to you too and to your families, Shana Tova. Amen. Just finally to our viewers, this is the last of the Chesed programs before Rosh Hashanah. We will then resume the program after Rosh Hashanah. I'd like to thank each and every one of our viewers for tuning in, as well as for tuning into the 4 programs we've had before this one. We have an exciting set of organizations to come post Rosh Hashanah. So we look forward to welcoming you back to those programs. And finally, myself, on behalf of myself, to each and every one of you, Shana Tova, and a good, sweet, blessed, better year ahead going forward. Rabbi?
Thanks, Rob. On a personal note and on behalf of the organizer group of this series, Soul, and the whole base community, in fact, the whole Jewish community, I can safely say, I want to say a very big thank you to David Aronovitz, to Rob Katz, to Stacey Lewis, to the Shoshana Foundation, for allowing us this opportunity to even find the words to praise each of you. And what you do is challenging. What you do, how you do what you do, such dignity, such respect, such chesed, it's truly a Kiddush Hashem. The dedication, commitment of each one of you is beyond inspiring, and I thank you. Kodesh Baruch Hu should continue to bless you and your families and all those that work with you and their families, that you should be able to continue to do the most important work you do and much, much more. There are certain acknowledgements and thank yous that are most necessary. As we've said, and as I say, I want to mention and thank our partners in the series, Soul, run by Kate Gershuni, Robin Smukla, and Josh Sevitz. Thank you to each one of you for this partnership and for all that you do. Rob, thank you tonight twofold. Thank you, as mentioned, for your shining examples in your actions of chesed, but thank you as well for being the host of the series and for all the time, effort, and care you put into this series and, in fact, our wonderful community, generally speaking. Thank you, Ariel Weber, for all that you do. The series wouldn't be what it is without your involvement and organizing behind the scenes. I also want to thank my brother Moshe for all that he does to make these webinars a reality. We could not do this without you. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Shana Tova Mutuka. An understandably great year ahead, please God. And I look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Keep safe and have a good night.